As so often in life, we have to turn our eyes to the scientific community to supply answers to our questions. Theirs is not a domain of speculation, nor are their truths based upon unsubstantiated claims and hyperbole. Maybe within this fortress of facts, the phenomena of Sasquatch might find a new home, a new community. The question was posed: are we witnessing the death of Sasquatch research? Or are we on the verge of a new era for those pursuing this popular pastime? In the end, will the Sasquatch Bigfoot community be left holding the bag? A bag filled with speculation, fabrication, and misinformation. And will the eyewitnesses one day bypass this bag of misdirection known as the internet and finally join exclusively with the scientists to address their questions? Join us now for the second part of the death of Sasquatch research. Let's get it on. This is West Coast Sasquatch Research.
Yeah, Jerry, if it turns out in the end that the Sasquatch doesn't and never did exist, and in my opinion, I've done my best to calculate a great piece of Western Canadian or Western North American mythology and folklore.
And it was fun doing it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Had a great life, met a lot of interesting people.
Absolutely.
And I got to go outdoors a lot. So.
Yeah, definitely.
And I can honestly say, here I'm in my, 56 years old, and as sad as it sounds, but three of my best friends I've met through Sasquatch research.
Mm-hmm.
And if it shows that in the end of the day there's nothing, I've made three friends out of it, or at least three friends, but three real good friends. That's not a waste of time.
No, it isn't. Like I said in episode 3 of Sasquatch 101, you will never regret the time you spend doing Sasquatch research. The people you will meet, the fun you will have going out into the bush, and just something to occupy your days with. You'll never regret it. Even if you give it up 30 years before you die, you'll never regret those days. Now, I'm trying to figure out a way to put this properly so you can understand. Talking about the fringe, are fringe believers their own catch-22 by wanting scientists to investigate the very things which they themselves have cheapened with their own antics and attitudes, with their blind beliefs?
In a way, I suppose.
It's the point is, it's the very thing that makes scientists put their hands up in the air and run away, is what these guys are guilty of.
Well,
and yet they want scientists to prove them right,
or they don't care if scientists believe them or not. They're just wrapped up in their own personal beliefs. Like the woo or the asylum, they're going to believe what they want to believe. They don't give a damn what mainstream science or mainstream politics say. And that makes no difference to them because they just want to keep the merry-go-round going. Now, those who are hoaxing from a zoological stance, hoping that someone's going to back up their hoax, yeah, but that usually explodes in their face, i.e., Randy Brisson, i.e. Ivan Marks, i.e. Various other people, Paul Freeman, people in the past, right?
So in many instances, Sasquatch research is more in need of a psychiatrist than a primatologist.
Well, most of the population would say that about all of us.
Oh, well, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. Yeah.
But,
But I
yeah,
mean, the word got to be out there, and I know a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to talk about Sasquatch because it's embarrassing and everything. They don't want their family, they don't want their friends, they don't want their neighbors to know or whatever. So, do we owe it to the fringe? Do we owe them a debt for keeping Sasquatch out there in the minds of people,
Well,
or is it just not worth having them around?
personally, I would like it to go back to where it's just a few, a small number of, dedicated researchers, and back to the days when 98% of the population couldn't give a damn. It's still that way a lot in Canada, but in the United States, the hoaxing has reached epidemic proportions. And it's, the fringe is the biggest reason for that. And silly television shows, best way to describe it is Duck Dynasty tracks Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's created a whole new gimmick and money-making opportunity for a lot of snake oil salesmen, quite frankly, yeah.
I think Thomas is a little more harsh in his beliefs than I am on it. Like when it comes to the hoax or to the fringe, first off, I don't think we owe them anything. We don't owe them attention. We don't owe them to debunk their stuff.
But do you owe it to yourself? Do you owe it to your fellow logical, normal-minded peers to debunk them?
No, I don't think so. I think, in certain cases where they may be doing a fake video or something, yeah, that's okay. But when it comes to, talking about interdimensional portholes and that, I mean, some of the people out there that believe in this stuff, they think that, they think that you're looking at with quantum physics, and that's a big one nowadays. Oh, quantum physics explains it, when they don't even have a clue on what quantum physics is. But somebody's told them that.
I don't either, and I watched the show on TV for 3 seasons.
But but by the same token, like, some of them do believe it. But we also have to remember, when it comes to the woo factor, there is that certain portion. Do you guys remember back in the 70s, Laetrile? What Laetrile? I've gone by the
is that a male enhancing drug?
No, Laetrile was this almond-based extract that was supposed to be the wonder cure for cancer.
Okay.
And there was cancer treatment centers down in Mexico that people were flocking down there to get this wonderful treatment that were going to save them. And of course it was a hoax. And then you had, those surgeons that were able to, by using their mind.
Yep. Laying on hands. Yeah.
Yeah. And pulling, they'd pull organs out of people. There's always been that certain con artist that's gone to the gullible market, and they will use whatever is popular at the time as a vehicle for their con. And I think in one of the shows that we did, I talked about that guy down in the U.S. that believes there's 2 types of Sasquatch. One is, they're aliens. One's bad, one's good. And the good ones are able to heal people. And he's had people with various illnesses that have, paid him to stay at his house and actually sleep outside even in bad weather. And some of these people were terminal, for the Sasquatch to heal. Well, in his case, I do not believe for a second that he honestly believes it. All he's that using the same old con to cure people, to focus on using something that's popular as a gateway to con people. And I think those people that if anybody of any good conscience, whether you're a Sasquatch researcher or not, if you can expose them, I just think that's a good thing. But go ahead.
But would that do any good, Bill? Would that do any good? You're still going to have the same people who want the same magical cure, and they'll just go to the next doofus that's offering it.
and you can only like I always tell my kids when they were growing up, you can only control the things that are within your control.
Mm-hmm.
And you can advise people, but you're right. There are certain people that you can show them the truth, and they will ignore it. And I think when we look at the woo factor, I think there are some people that are victims of the snake oil salesman. I think there's some, and I mean this honestly, that have mental impairments of some sorts that make them believe.
Yeah.
And then there's others.
Mental. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make a footnote that mental disease is something that's not well looked into in most societies in North America. It's a very important thing, and a lot of people are suffering from some kind of mental disability. You can talk about a sore leg, but you can't talk about a sore heart or a sore disposition or something like that. So, yeah, I agree with you. There are a lot of people out there, many more than suspected, I imagine, who do have some kind of a mental illness.
Well, there was a video on YouTube, and there used to be a guy on YouTube called Dr. Squatch. Now, he's had to take his videos down because there's a Dr. Squatch who makes soaps, and I'm pretty sure that Dr. Squatch had copywritten the name and told the other guy, cease and desist. But that guy had a YouTube video called a reply to Mr. Steenberg, and this guy basically was trashing what Thomas had done in one of his videos. And when you watch the video, it seemed clear that this gentleman had a decreased level of intelligence. It's either that, or he was doing a parody that went way above our heads.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy was talking about blue bags indicating Sasquatch at marking trails, and the guy crossing the road is almost hit by a car in the video. I mean,
yeah.
And if you ever get the chance, I think Thomas downloaded the video, but in his case, and he was actually very polite. And when Thomas commented that he mispronounced Thomas's name throughout the video, the guy did apologize to Thomas that he didn't mean to. And I think, a certain portion of the Sasquatch believers and sightings can be hallucinations and other things, but there is that portion that we never talk about that can be impairment of some sort. I mean, we had the couple of years ago, just before COVID, we had the drunk guy that dressed in a ghillie suit, and they think by what he was saying before, he went to scare some people that were driving down the road, and he jumped out in front of a car when he was drunk, and he got hit by the car and killed.
Mm-hmm.
But if he had been successful, there would possibly be another Sasquatch story. So, I think, part of the woo crowd, there is some that are looking for something. There are some that honestly believe that they've seen something and they have no rational explanation. So they go to that next level.
Yeah. So are they just filling in their lack of evidence to justify their belief?
Well, I think a prime example of what Bill was referring to and what you're getting at, Jerry, would be the N.K. Davis massacre theory.
Oh my God! Yes.
As far as I was concerned, back in 2009 when this first came out, myself, the late Bill Miller, and the late John Green blew that out of the water. But people keep bringing it up and starting that whole Ferris wheel going again. And so many people who just want to believe it so badly that no matter what facts you lay out for them, they just will not listen to.
But that's Sasquatch World. They are having the same arguments today on places like Bigfoot forums that they were having 20 years ago. on Bigfoot forums.
Like we said at the very beginning of this broadcast, Bill was arguing with somebody over the mission hoax, and the mission hoax is exposed as a hoax in '77 when it occurred.
Yeah, so my original question was, does all this stuff have a shelf life? Will it all come to an end one day? Will people just get tired of it and let it go? I doubt it.
A lot of people will never let it go.
Yeah.
I don't think in our lifetime, Jerry. I think, whether 50 years or 100 years down the road, it becomes part of mythology, like, fairies and leprechauns and that sort of thing. That might happen. But I think right now the phenomenon is too big, too widespread. And in fact, some could argue that it's still growing in maybe not, Sasquatch.
Oh, no. I agree. I mean, over the years, the paranormal movement has gained, it's probably quadrupled in the past 10, 15 years, and that's something that always bothered me about. If I'm going to believe in this critter, believe is a bad word. If I'm going to accept evidence of this critter, I want it to be a breathing mammalian type creature that lives in the forest, that hunts like a bear, eats like a bear, acts like a bear, because, that's the closest thing to it, is a bear-like creature. And I want to believe that. I don't want to believe they come from spaceships or anything else, but, animal all the way. Yet a little niggling part of me thinks, well, maybe one alien spaceship you could squeeze in there by way of an answer to many questions that have gone unanswered over the years. Maybe one flying saucer wouldn't hurt, but that's it.
And this is like, and I'll use the paranormal example. Over the last, 10 years after, TAPS first came out with their sort of breakthrough show, there's dozens of paranormal shows on TV now. Now, my favorite used to be one called Newfoundland and Labrador Paranormal Association.
Oh, really?
And these guys, they only lasted 1 or 2 seasons, but these
never
guys,
heard of them.
Oh no, but they were great because they went to a lot of the old places in Newfoundland, but they filmed exactly what they did. And if nothing happened during their visit, that's what you got, was nothing happened. In fact, one of my favorite episodes, it was in St. John's, and it was in an old barn that had started off, or a bar, I should say, that had started off at one time as being a monastery that burnt down, and then it was a bar and it burnt down, and it was something else. And this guy is just down in the basement, and he's having a cup of tea, and he's sitting there having his tea, and he hears a bang in there, and he just looks and goes, "If you're trying to destroy me, that's rude." But if nothing happened, they said that. But if something did happen, they would present it. Mm-hmm. Well, it only, because it showed the boring, and our research is the same, 90% of it or 99% of it's boring, nothing happens.
Oh, right? Yeah.
This is what the show showed. Well, it didn't last. But then you have these other shows where, EVP this, and where you listen to it and going, there's nothing there. You're making the word up that now because you've said the word, now we can hear it. Or there's 90 bumps in the night. Well, those are the ones that, people are flocking over, and they don't want the honest and truthful ones. They want the ones that are exciting. And that's the same thing in our, if the three of us were
they
tomorrow,
want a story. They want a story. Tell me a story.
And the excitement. If the three of us were to right now say, okay, we're going to do a show, and we're going to go and do our normal research the way we normally do, and we're going to do it, and we're going to put it on TV, we wouldn't get past the pilot stage.
No.
Because nobody's going to sit there and watch 3 guys, either we're doing a sit and stalk somewhere with maybe have some beautiful scenery in the background. Maybe we might, or maybe we see some birds or stuff, but they're not going to sit there and watch us for hours at a time, not seeing nothing and doing nothing. But if we go at dark and we put a road flare in our hands and we start yelling, get away, stop it, we'll have a hit show.
Yeah, they still want to be scared. They still want excitement. They still want to be everything that the subject promises them it could be. I don't know if you've seen it, but Thomas has a copy. I have a copy. We did a pilot for a show a number of years back. And it was a darn good pilot, too, where we interviewed this lady who had a sighting or encounter. And she didn't have any corroborating evidence or anything like that. But her story, she took us to the area where it happened. And her story was very compelling. And I mean, we interviewed her family. She's well known in the community and what have you. And I just thought that the production that we made, it was myself and Thomas and John Kirk and Sebastian, or was it Adam? I'm not sure. We all went out to Vancouver Island and we shot this thing, and it was supposed to go up in Toronto to the, film festival or whatever. And we thought, we got it, man. This is in the can in more ways than once. It was the same year that Bobo and the boys came out from down in the States. We didn't stand a chance. Their show blasted us out of the water.
Well, of course, and because we were sticking to the facts, and people want excitement. People want stories, and it's like, and let's face it, none of us are eye candy for the female audience.
Yeah, but neither is Bobo. Come on, or Claire,
well,
come on.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, it turns me on watching him howl. Howl again, Bobo.
We haven't seen Matt Moneymaker's swimsuit calendar yet, have we?
No, hopefully we never will. Yeah. If there is one, I'll get it for your next birthday, Bill.
Yeah. And we had the show Finding Bigfoot up here, and I had a lot of meetings with the people behind the camera when they did their episode up here, and they admitted to me right on the bat that the worst thing that can happen to us is we find Bigfoot.
Oh, they're out of business.
This is a show. Our main justification is having another season. So,
absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, the guys in the paranormal thing, they must be having a hoot now since the United States Air Force is recognizing Foo Fighters and bogies and stuff like that, unidentified flying objects.
Well, my point is, I don't dismiss the UFO phenomena. I don't even dismiss the paranormal outright. I'm just saying they've got nothing to do with the Sasquatch story. The Sasquatch, if it exists, is a zoological mystery.
I got a question for you about that.
Yeah,
I got a question for you about that. Is that, but first I just wanted to say that I had an encounter recently with someone who claimed that Sasquatch lived in a society and they were ruled by a strong hierarchy with hunting parties and scouts and all kinds of stuff. And when I asked him for his sources, which I think anybody should have the right to do, he became very defensive. Mm-hmm. And right away, he took on the template. I think people must get this stuff in the mail, what to say, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 kind of thing. He started talking about reading thousands of reports. And he said he's responding to me just to be polite. And, he didn't care about what I believed. And he told me not to try to contact him, as he had me blocked anyway. And he was sorry he did not live up to my standards. Wow. It was right out of the misinformed playbook. It just blew me away. I mean, I know there are people like that out there, but I didn't expect to run into one like that in this day and age.
I've run into a half a dozen like that. So.
As soon as you call them on something, they want to pick up all their marbles and go home and don't talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, wow.
It's like the kid in the old hockey, in the old backyard hockey days. He gets behind by 4 goals, he takes his net and he goes home.
Well, yeah, exactly. And these members of the cult of the Believe Me Because I Said So, these people are not bullshitters in their own mind. They really think that their evidence is valid.
They're in their own, like I said, they're almost like a cult or an obsessive religious faith. Yeah.
Well, I think, I think there's two groups within that. I mean, there used to be, I think it was a song by the Animals called "The Leader," and it was all about, how you could come out to lead a cult. And I think there is a portion of those people that are doing it for the money. Like I'm a strong believer that in some of these larger, like some of the Sasquatch channels that are large, some are good. They're doing is they're saying they're telling stories. Like I like Dixie Cryptid. He says, I'm just a storyteller. I'm not saying whether they're true or not.
Mm-hmm.
There's others that, our local hunting guide that I do not, I believe that it's strictly about the money. I don't think there's anything else. It's an income source for them. But I do also think that a certain portion of them, mental illness might be involved. Like I used to be on this Facebook group with this guy that was in Australia. That if he had posted these pictures and I remember in one photo he had a Yeti, or sorry, a Yowie, a Sasquatch, a 6-foot mantis creature, and a witch all in the same photo that you just couldn't see, and he had the red circles. Well, anytime anybody even so much as said when he red circled something, I can't see what you're seeing. What is it? Explain it to me. He had blocked them. And I watched him, and I didn't say anything. I just watched him for about a year and a half until finally I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I unsubscribed. But and then he would have a lot of people that were like oohing and on, and they could, oh, you're so brave, and they were seeing these faces, and they could see the 6-foot mantis alien creature stepping out of the
Oh boy.
stepping out of the porthole. But after watching him for that length of time and reading all this stuff, I don't, and he could have me fooled. I don't believe that there was deception there. I think the guy was a nutter, and I think he actually believed what he was saying, and I think that can be even more dangerous than the person that's doing it just for money, because nothing's worse than a fanatic. And
definitely not.
And like I said, I watched him for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, and I read everything he posted, and I don't believe that he was lying. I think that there was real mental illness involved when you had all these pictures, and you talk about the stories. I mean, he had one story, a picture of what looked like just somebody walking up the same trail, and he was talking about this being a witch, and he was not talking about the modern Wicca Wicca witch or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about a supernatural type of creature that was the witch that wanted to steal your soul, like right out of the worst of the medieval ages.
Oh yeah,
type of witch.
Hansel and Gretel.
And it was that it's not even human, and it was following, and it was like, one of these days this guy might kill somebody, like, because I mean he was like, and I don't think I'm overreacting. It's like when I was reading his stuff, it was like, holy crow, like there's mental illness involved, and it's either that or he was having a great laugh at all those people that were saying how brave he was and could see all these images that he was circling. He was
Who's
either a hell of an actor or there was something wrong with him.
It's a scary concept, though, no matter which way you look at it.
Exactly.
that there's somebody like that out there, and probably many, many more like him too, that you don't know about.
And so,
Thomas, can I ask you a question? Just, I'm sorry, Bill, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
well, it's one of the things that they've noticed, researchers have noticed with schizophrenia, is schizophrenia has a lot. The voices you hear if you have the type that has voices, a lot of them are culturally constructed. Like in the West, a lot of people that have schizophrenia tend to have demons, devils, that sort of thing talking
Uh-huh.
to them.
Uh-huh.
But in some other cultures where traditionally the voices have been reassuring or family members, they've actually researchers saying that part of the schizophrenia is cultural construct on what those voices and that you hear. And in the back of my mind, one of the things I wonder, if the more and more popular things like Sasquatch get, or Dogman, or whatever it happens to be, I'm wondering if this is eventually, if not already, starting to manifest itself in some people that have schizophrenia. And I'm not an expert in it, I don't claim to be, but I wonder if any researchers out there have ever made that connection.
Save that one for Leon. Boy, that's a snootful, man. Yeah, that's above my pay grade for deep thinking for tonight. But that is damn interesting. That is really interesting what you just said. Thomas, just to lighten things up a bit, could you please tell me, or you, Bill, whoever can come up with the answer, how did Sasquatch get lumped in with the paranormal crowd? Now, look, was Nessie ever considered to come from another planet or galaxy or dimension for that matter? No, no one picked on Nessie. But just because we got a guy that lives in the woods and wants to be left alone, he's the perfect target for UFOs and portals and what have you.
Well, I could tell you perfectly honestly, there were people who made such claims about Nessie even from the beginning, but no one listened to them.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah. As you were saying earlier, Bill was saying about getting into the realm of mythology, like goblins and fairies. I mean, every now and then,
some of my best friends.
Yeah, someone comes out with a new book saying fairies are real, goblins are real. I mean, you're never, ever, ever going to get rid of it altogether.
You can't. Not as long. Not as yeah.
Yeah, the Sasquatch is there because, quite frankly, it's an easy target. I mean, there are woods all over the place, so it's easy to go out and say something as weird and paranormal, and it happened, and you'll get a lot of people believing it. It's quite an easy thing to do. And what I like to think now is a lot of people have found who are way out there in the woo. An encouraging sign is that the Sasquatch has become too boring, so they've gone on to other things. Dogmen, shapeshifters, everything else. Hopefully leaving the Sasquatch behind. So.
I hope they don't start messing around with the creature of Bray Road, because that's my favorite. I love that guy. Yeah. I don't do werewolves. I told you in the past, Thomas, I don't do werewolves. If we come across one, you're on your own.
Right.
Yeah. Or as Bill Miller would say, the sausages are in your pocket, buddy.
But going back to your question, I myself, I mean, I was in elementary school and I used to read Eric Von Daniken stuff. I used to, read all that stuff. But I can remember in the early 70s, mid 70s, Eric Von Daniken talking about a connection between UFOs and Sasquatch. And I think there has probably been, for more than 50 years, there's been a certain percentage of people that have been involved with UFOs that have believed in the whole idea of the ancient alien theory, where they have taken us and either done genetic manipulation on early hominids or apes to create people from that.
Yeah, okay.
There was some of those aliens that, and even Eric Von Danken, I can remember him, and I can't remember if it was Gold of the Gods or maybe it was Chariots of the Gods, mentioning that possibly Sasquatch were an early attempt, or in other ones I've heard that they intentionally created Sasquatch from humans because they were using humans as basically slave labor for building the pyramids and stuff, and they hybridized Sasquatch because they were so much bigger, stronger.
Yeah, new and
So
improved.
there's that, and then when you get into the portholes, I think some of where that has come from. So many of the stories you hear is Sasquatch suddenly appeared and it was just there, or it suddenly disappeared. Now, for people like us that spent a lot of time in the woods, we know that you can have a moose that can step off a trail, take 2 steps into the bush, and you don't see it and you can't find it.
Gone totally.
Well, but people that aren't, maybe that aren't familiar with that, they see something that they think is 7 or 8 feet tall, whatever, steps off 2 steps and it's gone. Well, it's easier for some people to grasp that, hey, they can cloak or they can go through a portal. That's easier for them to grasp than the fact that could just take 2 steps off and it's suddenly not moving and it's standing there watching me, and because it's not moving, I'm not seeing it. And it's that old thing, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, there's people out there that don't understand that our brain can be fooled. There's all sorts of magicians make a career out of fooling our brains. Prey species have been using it for millions of years to hide from predators by doing things like not moving and and that. And we're now trying to say, oh, I don't see it, but I'm so smart and I'm so intelligent, it had to have disappeared, otherwise I'd see it. Go try that hunting and see what happens.
I remember we were up on the Chehalis Reserve one time by the bridge there and the little park next to the bridge. And I think I recall saying to Thomas one time that look up into the bank there and where all the trees and everything are. Yeah. I said, what are the odds that somebody in a ghillie suit could spend an hour there looking at 2 of us talking and us look around and never see him? Never see him. Not mainly because of the ghillie suit, but mainly because he did not move. I mean, they've done experiments on that. They put people near walkways in the bushes in plain sight if you looked at them, but very few people ever saw them. They just walked right on by them.
Oh, we used to do training like that when I was in the Army. If you stand still,
and it works. Yeah. It works.
Yeah.
Well, there's a video from a trail cam that they use, and I forget, it's one of the big national parks up in Alaska, and I think it's the kind of, and I think they've done it in Banff as well. But there are videos that they've had on the trail cams where they have grizzly, sometimes 2 grizzly, or cubs, walking down the trail. All of a sudden they stop, take a couple of steps off the trail, and then you see a group of people walk right by where those grizzlies are just sitting, and then you see the grizzlies calmly get back out on the trail and continue walking down.
Mm-hmm.
And here, so here are 800,000-pound grizzlies, have just simply walked off the trail, and they show these all the time that people are walking right by these grizzlies and not seeing them. I know myself, years ago up on Pink Mountain, I was in some camo. My one brother had been hunting down below, and I was just sitting there, and I was just basically sitting on the tundra, and I was looking at him through binoculars, and I saw him coming back my way. And I just, sat there not moving. And, he walked up to me and he was looking right at me for probably 20, 25 minutes. And then I stood up and he just about left a load in his diapers because, he thought he was walking up to a bush. He just saw me as being a bush or a rock in the distance, and that's what he was aiming for. And when I suddenly moved, it just and he was only like 20, 25 feet away, and he just went, said some very choice words and then broke out laughing.
I think it's the predatory thing in human nature, or a man as a predator, that we're attracted to movement like many other critters are. Then you get things like rabbits that are attracted to, like you said, just freezing in place. And they wait and see if it works. Does it see me? Does it see me? And if they think I can get away, they'll take off. If they think, yes, it does see me, they'll take off. But they'll remain frozen until they make up their mind one way or the other, if you can see them or not. And people has to have this wonderful peripheral vision. You always see things out of the corner of your eye. There's a spider walking across the floor. You look, nope, nothing there. But you are attracted by motion. So yeah, I believe that.
There are study after study that, and we don't understand how it works, but how people can, to a large degree, they can feel someone staring at them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they don't know how it works, and I don't pretend to have an explanation. But on that, you always hear people go, "Oh, well, there was that presence in the woods, and I had to get out of there."
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe a certain percentage of that time, there might be, a cougar or a wolf or a bear looking at you. But there's also, we have a lot of people, especially if you don't spend a lot of time in the woods, you freak yourself out. It's like, you walk down the dark street and you got Jack the Ripper following you. And we tend to overestimate our own resiliency at times and bravery when, we can let our minds play tricks on us.
But don't you think that's a part of survival from back many, many moons ago? I mean, we had those survival instincts that have gone by the wayside after we became such a big society and living in cities and everything else. These are just sort of flashbacks of skills we always had as a species, but don't use anymore, I think.
Well, I agree, because I think what a lot of, and I know science has been researching it for a long time, is, we have the amount of information coming into us, especially when you're driving. Like, they talk about the information coming in when you're driving is well above the amount that your mind can process. And I think part of that is, I think every one of us, we do a lot of processing of information at the subconscious level that, is just natural for us to do. And I think whether it's, somebody staring at our back because they want to walk up and I'm a sentry and they want to eliminate me. I think there's senses and feelings that we have that are at the subconscious level, and we don't understand yet how they work. But I think there's almost no debate that a lot of it is real. We just don't understand it. And that's the other thing people need to realize. Science, and guys like Eric Von Däniken, they made a career out of saying, that no matter how goofy of their theory, they go, and science can't explain it. And then we automatically are supposed to make that jump that if science can't explain it, then it has to be paranormal, alien, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they do that with the Sasquatch. Like, well, science can't explain it. Well, they may not be able to explain it because A, it may not be real, or B, we just don't have enough information yet to know how to explain it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
people have a hard time trying to explain the heebie-jeebies.
So, along that line, it's not so difficult to understand why Sasquatch is not so easy to be seen all the time. It's not that he has superpowers. It is just that we have lost our abilities to survival abilities, as I would call them. If we were sharpened and honed back to where we were 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, maybe it'd be a lot easier to see a Sasquatch if one was in the neighborhood, or to sense it, or to whatever way you want to pick up on it. Like I said,
assuming they're real.
Assuming, of course, they're real, because if they're not real and you're seeing Sasquatch, you got more problems than just being out of touch with your sensory apparatus.
A lot of people don't realize that a lot of these bear attacks and mountain lion attacks that occur wasn't because the animal saw you before you saw it. It's because it smelt you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it heard you.
Yep.
Long before you could hear it,
Come on. It's been scientifically proven that the average mutt can hear 300 feet at 30 feet. So in other words, if you've got two people talking at the end of the block, 300 feet away, my dog right here next to me can hear them the same as if they were only 30 feet away. So if the dog could understand English, he would be able to tell you what those people are saying, And that's a dog heavily domesticated over thousands of years. Imagine what a wolf could do, or a cougar, or a bear. We're woefully out of condition for the task ahead of us to find Sasquatch. We should stay home and watch TV where we're safe. This is daunting. This is very daunting. Yeah. Tell me something, guys. We've been here for a while now. It's 30-odd degrees. I'm getting kind of sweaty, hot under the collar. Tell me what your opinion is. We had Napier. One of the first books I ever read on Sasquatch was by Napier. We had Napier, Fehrenbach, Krantz, Meldrum, Bindernagel, the Russians, all of them. And all of them put together haven't elevated the Sasquatch to a point of study in the eyes of their peers. I don't see anyone clamoring to get in on the subject scientifically wise, So in light of these, half these guys I mentioned are dead. So in light of that, where's the next generation of watchmen going to come from? Where's the next generation of scientists that are going to jump up after Meldrum is gone or whatever? Do you think this is
genetics?
Yeah, you'll get the odd one that will take an interest in the subject based on the evidence that exists. But what will really do it is when someone brings in what science has always demanded, and that's a body or piece of body or sufficient skeletal remains. Then all of a sudden there'll be a whole lot of them interested.
Oh well, certainly. But we were fortunate enough at the time, I think, to get the handful that we did get. Mm-hmm. But I don't see a whole lot of people lining up to take their place.
Well, there's
and to me, unless somebody brings a carcass out of the woods, to me, that's who's going to solve this is a scientist.
Well, that is the final, basically, opinion that determines whether something is there or not. There are legitimate, i.e., anthropologists, zoologists, what have you, who are interested in the subject, but don't really announce that because, as they say in England, there was a term in the rounds of academia, the road to Loch Ness, and it was not a good road to be on.
And there's no coming back.
Career ride.
It's a career disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as long as it remains that, if they do look at it, there's going to be it's going to be sort of like in the closet, so to speak, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Until something significant is put forward. Yeah.
See, I don't agree at all. You have some universities now that actually have courses on Sasquatch as part of their course load, and some of it is from an anthropological study, more about the cultural anthropology of it. But some of it is doing some research. I think there, especially where, we got involved in Sasquatch primarily because of watching TV shows when we were kids, like, In Search of or whatever.
Yep.
And I think right now that there's, over the last 10, 12 years, you've seen a big jump in the popularity of Sasquatch with Finding Bigfoot and that. Who knows how many kids have got the spark from watching that show and have the curiosity that when they get into the universities that they're not looking at it. I mean, we've always had those guys like Todd Disotell. He's been around forever doing genetics. We had, Brian Sykes, who, unfortunately has passed away now, that did genetics. You had in California just before COVID, you had some people doing eDNA testing. So I think where the people are going to come from, I think you're going to get some from genetics, especially as these tests go down, the cost of them and easier. I think it may be the citizen scientist that is taking samples and sending them in for testing might be the gist in it.
So
but I think,
yeah.
But I do think, I think that because we're not aware of what's going on, we tend to think that science has turned their back on it. But I don't agree with it. I think, you've had, you've got Meldrum, but you've had guys like Disotell, Sykes, who was a world cutting edge leading geneticist, get involved. You've had other people monitor his work. I think there's people quietly in the background that are doing their thing
that's what I said. They're keeping quiet about it. They're not announcing it.
Like, what's her name? The Renee, okay, on Finding Bigfoot. I mean, she always played the skeptic, which was dishonest because, there's enough information out there to know that she was a proponent of Sasquatch long before that show. But she was, whatever you thought of her personally on the show, she was a scientist. Now, she did most of her studies was on salmon spawning and the ecosystems around that. And we have to remember, if Sasquatch does exist. So when you get a biologist out there that is studying the ecosystem, they're not going to, if they come across what they think is a legitimate footprint, most of them aren't just going to say, this animal does not exist, so I'm not going to look at it. Or if they come across something strange, even if they don't announce it publicly, they're going to look at it. And that's, scientists aren't, as a general rule, part of what makes a scientist is their curiosity. And, I think it's going to, I think that there's, and especially as environmental science really progresses and you get more and more people out there doing, because you look at say the Sierra Club, do you think, or Greenpeace, do you think that if they could shut down logging in a valley by proving that Sasquatch exists in that valley, that they wouldn't do that?
Mm-hmm.
And now, I don't believe in that whole conspiracy with the logging companies and the government not saying anything about Sasquatch, because I think that's
let's leave the black helicopters out of it.
Yeah, I mean that's pure BS. But there are scientists out there that they may not be looking for Sasquatch per se, but they are doing, reports on biodiversity in areas. They're doing all that, and I would be extremely disappointed to find out that most of them are out there and ignoring clear evidence. It goes against everything I know and about most scientists. I mean, you have the few that are entrenched in their beliefs, but
boy, all of this sort of circumvents the Sasquatch community, doesn't it? I mean, instead of a leg hole trap, it's going to be solved in a petri dish in a lab.
Yeah, well, I knew Grover Krantz well. I knew John Binder well, and I remember having conversations with them saying that I've shown the evidence to a lot of my colleagues, and they just dismiss it out of hand, and they always did. I mean, Grover said he actually almost had a fist fight with a couple of fellow academics in the University of Washington State because they were trying to get him removed because of his interest in the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Just for that reason. And
but then again, Thomas, you're talking about 40 and 50 years ago, right? And that's the thing. And you know, when you're looking at science today, I mean, as much as oh shoot, our friend down in University of Idaho,
Jeff
Meldrum, as much as he's like to have, you know, has tried to intimate it's hurt his career, I don't believe that for a second. You look at the fame and everything else he's got. You're telling me that there's not somebody that's in one of his classes that's looked around and said, you know, this guy's on TV all the time. He's making more money doing these, running around doing these conferences than he's making as a university professor.
Oh, I think there's more pluses than minuses out of it for him, definitely.
And I also think, again, you have the younger people that have, you know, grown up with the idea that Sasquatch might exist, that it's more open. I don't think you can compare the academic climate of the 1960s or 1970s with what's out there today.
No, I don't know if I agree with that. I think there may be more open-mindedness, but there's also still a lot of closed doors.
There's still a lot of scared people that aren't going to stick their neck out that far to be proven wrong or worse, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite sure Bill is right in that, you know, the brain thrust is there, but humanity is still humanity.
Yeah.
Things haven't changed a great deal in 30 years on the subject. It's still a boogity-boo subject for science. You know, I'm sure there is stuff going on in the background.
And there's still a lot of politics in the academic of science.
Oh, God.
But you look at it, you got, you know, Jane Goodall has said on more than one occasion that she believes that Sasquatch could exist. I mean, there's an icon in primatology. Then you look at, I forget her name, the lady that's on Expedition Bigfoot or whatever the heck they call it. You know, she's a primatologist, and people forget. I mean, she has, to her credentials, she discovered a species of primate in her studies. Like, she's outside of the whole, you know.
I know, but you have to wonder about something like that. I mean, about her origin. She was an NFL cheerleader who took a course in anthropology. And then she hit the circuit with what's his name, who does Survivor and all, Burnett. She hit the circuit with him and did 3 different shows with him. And then somehow she got a primatologist degree from some university named ULI or something, whatever it is. But I mean, basically, this gal, she might have the credentials, but her background is just a cheerleader that appeared in reality shows.
But she has discovered a species of primate.
She did. In Malaysia, she discovered a little critter, and she got the president of the country to protect it, pass an act calling it an endangered species or whatever. Yeah. I'll give you that.
You got, you know, and I mean, there are people that say that she's because she's the wife or girlfriend of the producer. That's how she's on there. Regardless, she discovered a species that's more than any of us have.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is, yeah, there might be, 99 out of 100 scientists may say there's nothing to it. Don't waste your time. But
That's what we're talking about.
I definitely do not, for an instance, believe that there's fewer scientists as a percentage today that are interested in it than there were before.
Oh,
But there's still the political aspect that has to be taken into consideration.
No, the interest is there. It's just coming out with it. It's the problem.
That always has been the problem.
And see, for myself, if you're if you're a grad student that's sitting down in Oregon, doing a biodiversity a study on whatever region, and you're looking for birds and insects and that, and you're doing a good job, and you have an interest in Sasquatch, and you don't tell anybody about it, but it's in the back of your mind as you're looking. To me, that's every bit as valuable as somebody that's not out there, but it's a scientist that's running around, getting people, sending them casts of stuff, and it's going from show to show saying, look at what I've examined.
Yeah, well, I think it doesn't matter. You're right. It doesn't matter how the evidence gets, harvested, as long as it gets harvested by one means or another. And I'm sure there are people out there who are doing this as a sideline to their regular gig. And who knows where the information is going to come from in the end. The game is still anybody's, gentlemen.
It's what will change the way the game is played that we're getting at, and what will do that is hard physical evidence.
Yeah,
and I think as the game's played, and again, I'm coming from the standpoint of somebody that does not believe they exist. I don't think we could ever prove that Sasquatch does not exist, because it'll be, no matter what you put up there might be something that could prove to you that it doesn't exist, but there's always that element that has seen it and go, I saw it.
Well,
what the evidence is.
You see, that's it. That's it right there.
Well,
there is things where you could go, like when I look at things like environmental DNA, as all these scientific methods are used more and more, they're going to do one of two things. It's either going to provide evidence that Sasquatch exists, or it won't provide any evidence that Sasquatch exists. And I'm a believer that absence of evidence is evidence of absence. So the more environmental studies we do, if they're not showing anything, that to me shows there's a less chance that Sasquatch exists. The more, we have trail cameras all over the place.
That's right. If it doesn't take a picture, that's because there was nothing there to take a picture of.
And I think that's the thing that people forget when trail cameras are out there. They take a picture of whatever goes by. So if Sasquatch go by, it'll take a picture of it. When they do the eDNA testing, when they're looking for all DNA, that's exactly what they're looking for. And if they come up with strange stuff, they come up with strange stuff. Now, unfortunately, eDNA is so expensive right now that it's very, very limited use. But again, future proofing, look at, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it might be, it's like you look at 20 years ago, if somebody told you that you could pay $129, spit in a cup, send it off to some company, and they were going to give you a genetic profile, what would you have thought? Here today, there's how many companies, 23andMe, just to name one, that are doing things like that. Maybe 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you can walk into your backyard, take a scoop out of the pond, and send it into a company for eDNA.
Yep, that still boils down to the give and take of science. What you said earlier about the trail cam, about trail cam takes a picture, won't take a picture if nothing is there. You know, if it ended there, that would be wonderful. But you get the owner of that trail cam saying, well, the Sasquatch just figured out a way to get around the camera. That's all. You know, it's a stupid run around in a circle world when you're in Sasquatch research. Which, and it sounds kind of odd talking about that and hear you so eloquently described, you know, the advances of science and how science is probably going to be the answer here. That's the way I feel too. But in the meantime, if we're going to be playing this game of researcher, enthusiast, collector of evidence, whatever, we still got a lot of frustration ahead of us because there's other people involved too, and other people are very frustrating.
Absolutely. And it's so much to the point. That's why now, today, after 40 odd years of being in this, I no longer care if the general population believes in the existence of the Sasquatch or not. I do this because I want to know.
Tries to put down people who say, I don't care anymore. You know, I'm not a researcher. I'm only in this just to serve myself. And I don't care. I don't want to bring the proof to the world. I want to find out for myself. And once I find that out, you know, God bless, that's it. I'm out of it, kind of thing.
No. Don't believe it. If I find the body of a Sasquatch tomorrow, I'm not going to keep it to myself. If I get a good sighting of a Sasquatch tomorrow, I'm not going to keep that to myself.
But there's others who say they will.
My motive now is my own personal interest. It's not proving it to everyone else. I mean, my friends, Bill, and other people have been plotting what they're going to do after I die for quite a while now.
They've been waiting. What's the holdup, huh?
Yeah. But to me, it's my own personal. I want to know one way or the other. That's the only reason why I keep going.
I hear you.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Jerry. When it goes to your question, and I've said this to people, there are some people out there that claim that they have extraordinary evidence, but they say, "But I'm not sharing it with you."
No, lots of them.
And okay, you're a BS artist in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've said to one person that claimed to have had an absolute fantastic film that was way beyond the PGF, and they said it was irrefutable evidence, which I don't believe you'll get from a video, but whatever. So I asked him, I said, are you planning on doing a documentary on it? And the reply was, no, I've taken it for myself. I now know that Sasquatch are real. You want evidence of it, you go out yourself. So my reply to them is, okay, that's fine. You have that right. But in the world of Sasquatch, your evidence is useless.
Mm-hmm.
It's meaningless. Because if you have that evidence and you're not sharing it with anybody, then that evidence might as well not exist.
That's right.
And if Sasquatch exists and you have a body stuffed in the corner in your trophy room, and you want to sit there and say, look at this, I know Sasquatch exists, I'm so much smarter than everybody else in the world, have at her, buddy, but in the annals of time, you are meaningless and useless.
Well, that is very true from that point of view. But then there's the other point of view is if you actually saw a Sasquatch on a little trip out into the back 40, and you actually saw one, what more would you want? It goes back sort of to what Thomas said. If I saw one, you don't know how you're going to react until the time comes. But if I saw one, I would say, wow, like I've been blessed. I'm not going to push this thing. I've seen one. It's been answered. Yes, they do exist. And let it go on its merry way. I don't think I'll be going back there to measure for tracks or anything for months on end to hope to be able to get a video of this critter in my little area that I plotted out for myself just for that purpose. I don't know. I think just one look. There's a part of me that would love to say I got bragging rights. Yes, I saw one. I'm going to get a video of this one and pictures and what have you. I
And
don't.
I don't nobody. And again, I don't want to come across. Nobody has an obligation to share information if they don't want to.
Yeah, I think that was my point.
So if what I get fed up, like if you see something and that's great, and I can understand somebody having a visual sighting and just say I'm not sharing it because I don't want the ridicule, and that's fine. But what I don't like is the people that will say, I have this evidence, I have that evidence.
Oh yeah, that's something else. Yeah.
But I'm not going to share it. And so then it's like, okay, then why did you bring it up?
Exactly.
And the other thing is the people that do bring evidence forward, that when somebody asks legitimate questions, they then have a big hissy fit about being called a liar and you need to believe me. And again, if there's, and I've seen it with both. I've seen where people have posted stuff and other people have got rude, to say the least. What I've also seen where people have posted stuff that is, in my opinion, nonsense, but other people have asked legitimate questions that were not rude, that were totally legitimate, and the person that posted the evidence goes on and has a hissy fit.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's up to them if they want to come forth and say that this encounter happened. But it's also up to other people whether or not they wish to ask, well, where's yours? Where's your proof, your evidence? Where's your source for your information? Where, give us some background here. Just don't tell us a story and expect us to swallow it. This is for research sake. So let's do a bit of researching. You came forward, you put this on the table. Okay, let's look into it.
I'm a big believer in the phrase, not my circus, not my monkey. And this goes down to what you were earlier alluding to on what we should be looking at in that. So, like I said, on that one guy's Facebook page, which I watched him for like a year and a half, trying to get into to debunk his sightings or get into conversation. I saw very early on that it would not be possible. So I ignored him. It's not not my calling to go and debunk everything. Now there's some stuff where I've been passionate about trying to debunk, but again, there's guys like, I'll say it, Thinker Thunker. I have my opinion of his work. I have a very low opinion of it. I don't go to his webpage and I don't try to dispute everything he puts on his website, because it's a waste of my time and it's a waste of his, because he's not going to change. So it's we have to look at what battles are worth fighting.
Well, that's it.
So if a guy's saying, so like the Bluff Creek massacre, okay, why is that important to us? Well, it's important to us because, and YouTube more so than me, knew John Green and considered John Green a really good friend.
Yeah.
And it's important to you guys to not allow his memory to be tarnished like that. It's important to you guys as friends of Rennie DeHinden. I mean, you want to do it because it's the truth, and you know what, you guys know the truth. There's that, but for you, there's a passion involved because Rennie DeHinden was a friend, John Green was a friend, and you'll be damned if you're going to let somebody lie about them and distort their legacy. But there's other stuff out there that I've heard, that I've heard that is I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get involved because it's just not that important to me. And I think that's what, we all do that. We have certain things that we're very passionate about correcting the lies, because whether it's something like the Chehalis Sounds, where, you two gentlemen were both involved in it, what you saw and the reaction you got. So it's important for you guys to tell the truth. Where somebody else that might have heard the information from you guys, it might not be that important for them because it's none of their. It's not my monkey, not my circus.
That's right. They don't have a lot of investment in it.
And I think that's where, as researchers, we can't change the world. We can't change every nutcase into a. We can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear.
There's too many of them. If you were going to try to correct somebody who might be in error through misinformation or something, there's not enough hours in the day to be able to even keep up with them. So, pick your hill to die on. It isn't doing that with someone who doesn't care anyway what you say anyhow.
And that's the thing is when somebody speaks out against a friend, okay, that's one thing. You're gonna put your, damn the torpedoes full straight ahead. We're gonna create, fix this BS. But when it comes down to some of the other stuff, your audience, as you said, is a big part of it. Is when you talk, and you know as well as I do, in the first minute or two, you normally know what type of person they are. And is it going to be okay? Is this somebody that I can have a meaningful back and forth discussion with? And if the answer is yes, you may choose to do it because it might be something that you think that you can help them, or that you might get some good ideas back. But if you talk to somebody and you know that, okay, this is somebody that no matter what I say or what I do, they're not going to change their mind. And for me, it's just not worth talking to them.
Yeah.
And if they're telling me a story, I'll just listen. And, in the back of my mind, my whole thing is, okay, once he's gone, I hope I don't have to talk to him again.
And who's to benefit from that? Not you or him, Well,
sometimes I think the benefit can be you're avoiding a confrontation. Like, I know.
I'm sorry. I phrased that the wrong way. What benefit I meant would it be to you or him to engage over the matter? It's better just to let him go on his way and you go on your way and forget about the whole thing.
There is no benefit. And I know, like, I've heard reports, and I'm sure, and Thomas has heard, dozens of times more reports than I have, that people that even when they honestly believe they saw something, where you just think, okay, this is just not on, and you're going to let them tell their story, and it's because it does you no good to say, come on, you're lying, or come on, do you really expect me to believe that? It's just better to let them say their piece. They walk off content. They've said their piece, and you can file the report and file 13 if you want.
Yeah, it's and sadly that's a huge part of the makeup of the Sasquatch world and interacting in the Sasquatch world. But all in all, I take it that you gentlemen are trying to tell me that all of this stuff is going to go on for at least another 40 or 50 years. There is no shelf life on this. It is the song that never ends, the gift that keeps on giving. It is, this is your life.
The never-ending story.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I honestly believe that we could all live to 105 and still, pass away before this ever goes away.
Well, good. That gives me lots to talk about in these podcasts then. No shortage of information. I'm happy, gentlemen. I thank you both very much. It's been a very informative talk for sure. A very interesting talk. There was some stuff brought up here in this podcast that could devote a whole different podcast to, more than one. That's for sure. I want to thank you, Bill Reed, for your expertise as usual. Thank you, Thomas Steenberg, for just being an all-around good guy who likes to take notes, a real Bilbo Baggins. And folks, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much.
Well, Jerry, just one final thing. I enjoy these, but again, with Thomas, I know Thomas is well respected in the field for his, no BS attitude. But I think, people really underestimate the value of what he does with his record keeping. And I hope one day Thomas gets recognized for those efforts.
And I just want to say, Bill Reed, we need a lot more of what I consider, Bill, an open-minded skeptic. We need a lot more of that and a lot less of the woo.
We just need a lot more open-minded people, period. And guys, it's been a slice. I know I can always count on you for a good show. And this was, again, a good show. And God bless both of you. And we'll do this again soon.
Have a great night, guys.
Good night, Bill.
Good night, gang.
Good night, Thomas. Take care. God bless. Okay, dear listener, that about wraps it up for now. My name is Jerry Matthews. You can reach me at yellowcoyote@talus.net. Thank you for your interest, and until the next time, keep searching.